Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in, College Football Nation. Welcome in, Tiger Nation, to a Sunday edition, the Snapback with T Mac. It's been a crazy ride, but it looks like this thing is coming to an end. I want to thank our sponsors before we get going. Wall to Wall Roofing and Construction. Go check them out. www.w2wbuilt.com. Need a new roof, need those guys to come check it out. They can get it done. Chris's Specialty Foods. They have two or three locations, a couple in Baton Rouge, one in New Orleans. Anything you need, sausages, any specialty meats, boudin, they got it all. Go check them out. Chris's Specialty Foods. Jerry Lane, Chrysler Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. One of our great sponsors. I'm a Dodge man. They got me in a nice Dodge 2500. Going to be getting a dually soon, but y'all go check them out. Good people, all three of those sponsors, and they made this possible for us. So we'll get right into it. You know, it's been a hot topic over the past month. I guess since the day that uh, Brian Kelly got fired and got sent down the road. You know, you heard people say it wouldn't happen. There was no way we could get rid of Kelly. Couldn't afford to let him go, and we found a way to let him go. You know that was ugly, the way that whole deal went down, and seems like that one finally came to an end. Now we're sitting here, and I said it 4 weeks ago. There were two guys, in my opinion, at the time that we let Coach Kelly go after the A&M game. There was an embarrassing loss. I know there were some people that said that they knew Coach Kelly's time was done after the Ole Miss loss, but me personally, I knew after the Texas A&M game that it was time. Just where this program, the goals they had, and the places they wanted to go, we just weren't getting it done, and a change was needed to be made. And I said 4 weeks ago that of course, you go try and see if Nick Saban wanted this job. Coach Saban has been at it a long time. He seems to be enjoying what he's doing on game day and doing an excellent job. And the next in line, I thought we should go get Lane Kiffin. And I think everybody knows Lane Kiffin's story, and nobody comes into this deal or does anything in life without um, having some failures and learning from your mistakes. And sometimes it takes people a little longer. It takes them a few more bad decisions to get to the final place where they want to be. And I think you look at Lane Kiffin and you looked at some of my talks on here, the Snapback with T Mac. I talked about it 6, 7 years ago. Uh, I didn't have a whole lot for Lane Kiffin, just I didn't care for it. You looked at the path that he had gone down, the baggage he was carrying, and just wasn't a good look. But I think, and you hear him talk about it, he has really worked on uh, who he is as a person, what he represents, how he comes across to the media, and I think he's a guy that has transformed his image. Um, he's always been an offensive genius, and I think right now at this time, and I know there's some mad Ole Miss people right now. We'll talk about that a little bit, but right now for this program, I thought it was really important once we fired Brian Kelly to go get Lane Kiffin. And, I know it got touchy there at times, and we didn't know if we were going to be able to get it done. Um, but the people that are in charge that wanted to get this deal done, they stayed steady. They stayed after him. I know a lot of things were hush hush and just trying to get it done. And I think everything just hit the fan last night. We learned last week um, that Ole Miss would be making a decision on Saturday, and I'm sure, like me and everybody else around college football, especially LSU fans, Ole Miss fans, and Florida, I think at that point they had kind of accepted the fact. Well, not until middle of last week that they were out of the hunt, but everybody all day yesterday was updating their phone trying to see what was going on, what had he decided. And I think what's really important here, and you talk to or you hear Ole Miss fans on social media, calling him a Judas. Everything that's going through. I think what really needs to be talked about is, yes, he's coming to LSU now, but he really wanted, and what Lane Kiffin wanted was to coach his football team at Ole Miss. They have a special season going on right now. He wanted the ability to be able to coach that team. Up until late last night, they had a shot at the SEC championship. Of course, with Alabama winning that game over Auburn, that was shot, but he wanted the ability to be able to coach that team and possibly go win a national championship. And me, as an ex-football player and as a guy that's put in work in multiple training camps with a team to build a chemistry and with a coach, every year now, especially in college football now, it's like this in the pros, but every year now in college, your team is almost completely different. Your playmakers are going to be different every year. You're going to have some holdovers and you're going to have some guys that had success, but in the key spots, if a guy's not getting it done, you're going to have new guys at that position. And if you don't, you're not going to be able to compete at the highest level in college football. So, I feel like Lane should have got the opportunity to be able to go coach that team. And I think it's something you've heard Coach Saban talk about it. You've heard a lot of people around college football talk about it. There needs to be a system set in place with college football, and it needs to be the calendar, how the calendar works. That needs to be done as soon as possible because right now this is a flawed system. We shouldn't be going through this right now. The players shouldn't be going through this at Ole Miss and other schools around the country. Coaches shouldn't be forced to be put in this position to where they have to decide between a team that's having success, their team that they've worked to build to get this recognition from universities that want to hire them. They shouldn't be put in this position. And I know Ole Miss is in a tough position. I had someone brought it up to me like this yesterday, and you think about it like this. Why the AD at Ole Miss is thinking this way. He said, I know it's Sunday and all, but if you found out your wife was cheating on you, would you let her stay around in your house till Christmas? You think about it like that, and I know that's a little different, but Ole Miss was scorned at this point. They were hurt with the fact that Lane Kiffin wasn't happy there anymore and that he was going to move on after this year. So I get it from their standpoint, but looking at it from my seat over here, I feel for that team. I think that team is, they were going to have a chance to possibly go win a national championship, and they still may. They still may. We got to see what's going on. I know Coach Lane, and not sure who all's coming over here this way. Who's coming on the plane to make the announcement that they're coming here to LSU, but depending on who's left on that staff, things have been affected, and it's definitely not a good thing right now for college football, and it's something that needs to be changed pretty quickly. And I'm gonna go on to Facebook because it's been hot today, and I'm just talk about a bunch of topics. I had an old lady got on me today. Just she threw out some words at me that I don't know if I've ever heard on a Sunday from an old lady that's a passionate Ole Miss fan. I ain't even gonna say it. I mean, and I get it. Look, I get it. These Ole Miss people are. They were finally happy that they had a team, they had a coach that were giving them success, and when they feel like he turns his back on them and wants to go to greener pastures. 2 weeks ago, they were saying, no way Lane Kiffin was coming. Now they saying y'all can have him. They telling me that Judas got us 30 pieces of silver. It's not good right now. We'll go ahead to Facebook, got a couple comments, and then we'll keep rolling. Where do we go now? Once we get Lane signed, where do we go? The Hitman from Zachary, Louisiana wants to know, is Knox coming to Zachary? Is Knox Kiffin coming to Zachary? I'm trying, Coach Hitman. We're trying to get him on a recruiting visit to Ruston this weekend when the Broncos go up there and and play in Ruston. He doesn't need to settle for U High. He needs to compete against the best of the best, the 5A, where every player can play the game. We'll see. We can't be greedy right now. We just want his daddy right now. We'll see what happens there. Um, Chris Keys says, he agrees. Saban, listen at me. Kiffin should have been able to coach his team, and I totally agree with that. And I'm sure he lost sleep over this decision. There are going to be people that say that he didn't. He just was after the money. I totally disagree with you. I know me personally, an LSU fan, I'm on what seems like the winning side of this deal, getting Lane Kiffin over here. But I truly believed, and you watch him on the field this year, you see the way his team played for him. You see the interaction after touchdowns or after pick sixes, the way he wanted them to have fun. I think that's how you have to coach this day and age in college football. Times are different. Uh, Players are different. You can't coach them the same way. We saw that a little bit here at LSU this year. Uh, you you got to coach players a little bit different. The mind is a little bit softer than the olden days when we grew up. You got to coddle them a little bit, and you got to you really can't hurt feelings. It's tough because they may go somewhere else next year. But the way he coached, and I know success makes you play a little bit faster, makes everything look a little bit better. But I saw a team that was playing for a coach that they had all bought in for a common goal. And I hope he can bring that same amount of energy to Tiger Stadium. And I know one of the biggest deals that he wanted in the contract, and I don't know those specific numbers, was how much he was going to be given to go get players. And I've heard anywhere from 21 million a year to 30 million to go get the players to fill his roster. That's a big number, and I think if you're going to be able to go compete with the top dogs and be in that playoff every year, you got to be able to have a budget to go attack it. And then you look at, and you heard Coach Saban talk about it yesterday on game day. Why would Lane Kiffin want to leave Ole Miss, where everything is good, where they'll provide him, they would match everything that LSU wanted to offer. They would give him the amount of money for roster that he needed. But why would he choose to leave Ole Miss, where they were matching everything to come to LSU? And I think Coach Saban hit it on the head. If all things are equal, and you can come to Louisiana, LSU has put out a tremendous amount of high school talent. You can look at it, and I know that's an arguable point, but you look at the players that have come out of this state, not just players that played at LSU, but the number of high school players that went on to play at the college level and then went on to play at the NFL. Very fertile football recruiting grounds. And if you can go recruit your own state in Louisiana, and you can get high school players to come for a lesser amount of money, and you can go use your resources in the NIL market, or to go get a player out of the transfer portal, then you're gonna have more bullets in your gun. And Coach Saban even said it, that he felt like LSU offered a little bit more in that aspect of it. And I think that's why I think that's why he decided to come this way. It'll be interesting to see where we go from here. Who does Lane bring on his staff to follow him? I heard it's him and his brother that are coming now. I don't know if there are any other coaches coming with him right away. I would hope that they would. You would think, and you've heard that Weiss would be coming with him. But I think he's the guy that you leave there to keep calling plays and keep running that show for Ole Miss. And then if he wants to come once the season's over with, you give him that opportunity. So it'll be very interesting to see, how do we fill this roster. Me personally, I would love to keep, and I know there's people that don't agree with me. I love Blake Baker. I love what he does defensively on that side of the ball and what his staff has done. I keep that in place. If you want to go get some other areas or spend a little bit more money to get the right offensive coaches, you do that. But that might also be flipped upside down. I'm hearing Blake Baker's name mentioned at Tulane. If he decides to go do that, then I'm not sure what'll happen there. Then you got to go find a defensive guy. You got to go find a defensive coordinator, and at that point, do the guys from Ole Miss come follow? So there's a lot of pieces that needs to be put in place. Kelly Walls was talking. Me and Kelly were talking about this last night. I like keeping Baker. Does Frank stay? Kelly, I think that's a really important part of the puzzle. If you went out and you did everything you needed to go get Lane Kiffin, and we talked about Coach Saban talked about him deciding to leave Ole Miss is where he felt like that he could come recruit a little bit better at LSU and the talent in Louisiana. There's nobody better in the state of Louisiana than Frank Wilson. I mean, it's proven. So you find a spot for Frank Wilson. I don't care if it's coaching the footballs, whatever he's coaching, you need him on that staff. We've watched what he's done in a tough situation, and he has stayed true to who he is, loving his state, loving his program. I think there's no way unless Frank Wilson wants to go somewhere else or do something else with which I strongly believe that he doesn't want to. He needs to be on this staff. And I mean, then you could go down there's a few other coaches on this staff that I think you got to keep, but that'll come down to Coach Kiffin and what he decides to do. Ole Miss ruined their season not laying. Calvin Chauvin saying that. Uh, I, I agree with you on that, because I truly believe they had a decision to make. Lane, of course, had this offer from LSU and was courting LSU in Florida, and I don't know. And I know Jimmy Sexton got everybody involved to try to build this thing up. But I think, and I'm sure you'll hear it from him whenever his press conference is. He even stated it on Twitter today with his message announcing that he was going to accept the LSU job. And this doesn't need to be taken lightly. Lane Kiffin wanted the opportunity to finish coaching his football team that worked so hard to get to the point where they were. And I think that's why this thing drug out so much. While it drug out for 2 weeks, because Ole Miss knew that Lane wanted to finish coaching the football team. They probably knew he was interested in LSU or Florida, but they really was hoping his mind would change and that he would sign an extension with Ole Miss. But they knew at some point it was going to come up against a brick wall, and that brick wall happened, I believe, last night when and I'd love to have been a fly on the wall in that meeting. I guess they decided that if Lane was going to coach somewhere else next year, that he wouldn't be able to coach his team. And I think they truly thought that might help change his mind. And we're in a different scenario right now. Lane told him, look, I want to coach this team. I want to finish it out. But if y'all are going to put me up against the wall like this, here's a life goal of mine. I think LSU's a job for me, and that's where I'm going. So I hate that it came to that, but that's where it is. The higher-ups over there decided that they wanted to move on from Lane Kiffin. So you can't – and I know Ole Miss fans are trying to put it on Lane Kiffin for, what happened at Tennessee, leaving in the middle of the night when he was a much younger, more immature coach, still learning how to be a head coach. USC, he didn't have his success in the NFL with the Raiders. Lane Kiffin, in my mind, and I think in a lot of people's minds, went to Alabama. He got to learn under Nick Saban. He matured. His maturity from Lane Kiffin that was at Tennessee, from Lane Kiffin that was at Oakland, from Lane Kiffin that was at USC, it's night and day. He's a different coach. He has a different mentality. I think he is at peace with who he is as a person. And people saying he'll never come here to LSU and win a national title, I disagree with you because I think the tools have been put in place around him to go get the best players And that's where we are with college football. So it's not the recruiting game, pay players, under the table. Now it is what it is. I don't know if I like it, but you have to accept it. If you have a good coach that can run a team and you have the budget to go get the best players in the country, you still have to find a way to make those players be a cohesive unit. But that's where it is. You're going to look at the big dogs in the country. It's going to be hard for an underdog to compete. You're not going to see many underdog stories because the best players at some of these smaller schools are going to be scooped up by an LSU, an Alabama, Penn State, Ohio State, Clemson. You can name. I mean, I think unless something drastic happens, you could look at the top 20 in the country, and that's where the best players are going to go. There may be teams that build with recruitment, but at some point, other schools are going to want to come scoop up their better players, and that's just a domino effect there. So, Brian saying, "Welcome to Kiffin family." I agree. I think Baton Rouge is going to take him in with open arms, and really excited to see where this program's going from here. Let's see, Brandon Strickland. In most professions, jobs give you a notice. Sometimes employers honor that notice, and sometimes they ask you to leave. Ole Miss made their bed with this one. Brandon, I agree with you. I think they knew what he wanted to do, or else he would have signed that extension. I don't know how long it's been on the table, a month and a half ago. They thought they would be able to change his mind. They thought with the team continuing to have success that may change his mind. But they put his back against the wall last night, and he made a decision that not only affects the future at Ole Miss, but it affects, I think it's going to affect the history books of what this team at Ole Miss could have done. And now you're going to look at it, the situation, the playmakers over there at Ole Miss, the guys that aren't draft eligible, that are still going to have a year left in football next year. Are some of those guys going to follow? And you wonder how some of those players, when Lane left out the door, and I could tell you, I've been in those meetings. The meeting they had today at 1:00, those team meetings, and I guarantee you, Lane Kiffin, when he stood in front of his team, he left no doubt to every one of those players that he wanted to see this thing out. And he stood there and looked them in the eyes, and I guarantee you there were tears coming out of his eyes and probably some of his players' eyes, because that's the type of bond that you build. But he made sure those players and those coaches that were standing there looking him in the eye knew that he wanted to finish the job that they had started. That the administration at Ole Miss gave him an ultimatum. Either you're going to sign this extension, you're going to be the coach here at Ole Miss of the future, or we're not letting you coach your kids right here. And I think in that meeting, or I know in that meeting, those players had no doubt the sincerity that Lane Kiffin had when he left, that he wanted to coach those guys. So I'm sure he has a tremendous amount of respect from those players, because it's something that's you can't buy. You can't go pay for somebody's respect. It's something that is earned, and I think Lane Kiffin earned that from his players this year. So you look at a guy like Kewan Lacey, in my opinion, one of the best backs in the country. You can watch that guy play. He was at, I believe, Missouri last year. Lane got him to come there. Who's he loyal to? Is he loyal to Ole Miss? I don't think so. Maybe he's built a bond with some of the players around there and wants to stay at Ole Miss. But if he left Missouri to go to Ole Miss because he got offered a little money, would he leave Ole Miss to go play for a coach that he has a lot of respect for? And I'm just saying that as something I believe. I don't know if he has a lot of respect for him, but I believe he does. So he's a guy that I could see wanting to come play for Lane Kiffin next year. I think an area that we're definitely going to have to talk about, because we didn't have success here as an offensive unit, was the offensive line. We got some great pieces that'll be back next year. We have to be better there. And then, it'll be up to Lane Kiffin and his staff to figure out if those pieces just weren't coached right, if those guys really have the talent can they compete in the SEC? And then what areas or what positions do you need to bring new guys in? And you're gonna have to bring some guys in. We got to have better play from our tackles. I think Thompson. I'm not sure. I think he'll be gone. We just have to be better as a unit, as an offense. We have to be coached better. We have to be more physical. We have to. That unit has to be better. And I think with Lane Kiffin coming, if you had to, I think you could take that same group of guys or the guys you have in that room right now with the way they practice, with his offensive scheme, and I think it would, and a good quarterback would, the scheme itself would make that unit better than the product they put on the field this year because he's going to put them in the right situation. And I think that's what makes Lane Kiffin so special. So do we go find some of the best tackles in the country, young guys that have proven they could go out and play at a high level, protect the passer? I think you're going to have to. I think the most important piece besides Lane Kiffin right now and this team is who is going to be the quarterback that Lane Kiffin trusts next year. I think you have a couple options or two right now that come to my mind. Simmons from Ole Miss, he was going into the season as a starter. What does he want to do? Does he want to come along also? That'll be interesting to follow. But I think the guy you may have to go try to get is Sam Leavitt from Arizona State. A guy that's shown he could play at a high level, got injured, but there's been big rumor that he's looking to go somewhere else next year. If you can go get that guy and put in Lane Kiffin's system, you go get Lacey to follow along with Harlem Berry and some of those pieces we have there. Put a few guys up front with the receivers. Go find you another legit receiver because we're going to lose a guy or two. Go find some guys that can make some plays. The sky's the limit. Then you just have to build this culture. You have to build this chemistry. Coach Kiffin's going to have to earn trust from another team, and that's something that you're going to have to earn year after year because, like I talked about earlier, the pieces are going to be different every year. Let me go look at some more comments here, seeing if anybody else has something that we need to talk about. Tyler Elliott, we need a scholarship quarterback, and we need some offensive line help quick. I think we need more than one scholarship quarterback next year, and I'm sure that's why it was really important to get Lane Kiffin to come to LSU because now, if you had to, let's just say this, if the Lane Kiffin deal fell through, who was going to be our next guy? Could we have gotten Drinkowitz from Missouri? He signed an extension. Dillingham from Arizona. To me, with the success he's had offensively, Lane Kiffin sitting in that captain's chair, you're going to draw a different caliber of quarterback to come run your system because those guys that are high-level quarterbacks, they have aspirations to make their draft stock better the following year. And who better in this country right now could you go play for? And I know there's a few offensive gurus around, but if my son was a sophomore or junior quarterback that was one of the top prospects in the country, I would have no problem sending him to play for Lane Kiffin. But you're going to have to keep guys happy. One guy could, if you go get a guy, he could be one play away from the next guy being in. So I think you have to go get 3, possibly 4 guys on scholarship to be ready to go for the Tigers this year. And then, the offensive line play is we got to be better there. I've talked about I'm willing to offer my services. I'd go love to go learn from the Lane Train, his system, and go help out with that offensive line. But, that's neither here nor there. Thank y'all for joining us. We'll keep watching this deal. Y'all join us. I'm going back live tonight, 7:30 with the Football State of Mind podcast. We're doing a little deal together. Maybe we'll have some more talk coming from LSU, from Lane. We're going to talk about all of college football, some pro stuff. So y'all join us. We'll be back live again at 7:30. I'm gonna try to stream it live from our account, but the Football State of Mind, they'll have it going from their account. Come check us out. Maybe we'll have some more information and some more things to answer. I know we went fast and talked about a lot of different things. Really excited about the program at LSU for 2026 and years to come. Excited to see what product we put out there on the field. Lane Kiffin, welcome to Death Valley. Welcome to LSU. Let's go get it, Coach.